Shalom. Giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachachakodash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations, as always, to the elect, you sincere brothers and sisters coming back to the Most High God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh, Bahasham, in the name of Yahweh Shai, all right, which is the name of the Son of the Most High, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, our mediator, our high priest, and our only way back to the Father in these latter days. All right, and via the death, burial, and resurrection, which we believe in wholeheartedly. All right, which is the standard of the faith of the elect would start with faith in the Son of the Most High. Okay, in these latter days, which if you don't believe in the death, burial, and resurrection, all right, you have nothing. Okay, and in these latter days, through the blood of Yahweh Shai, all right, we have the good news of our sins being covered, so that we can offer up the sacrifice of faith, all right, contrary to what was required under the first covenant, which was perfection in the law. And though we, to the best of our ability, keep the laws to abstain from the wicked ways of this world, we know and understand we have an advocate in the heavens, all right, and through that blood, the death, burial, and resurrection of Yahweh Shai, we can now, okay, be justified by faith, which is something we didn't have access to under that first covenant. Okay, so the faith of the elect in these latter days, all right, and the Son of the Most High is the determining factor of you being made right with the Most High. Okay, and the faith of the elect fulfills the law. Okay, and here we are at the very end of Esau's world, and the Lord has set up prophets, okay, which are charged. Let's get the book of Jeremiah, the 50th chapter. Okay, Jeremiah 50:2. This is what Yahweh says. Tell the whole world and keep nothing back. Raise a signal flag and tell everyone Babylon will fall. Okay, and when you read these letters that Jeremiah wrote in Jeremiah 50 and 51, these was letters that he wrote to the captives at Babylon, which ultimately, when you read them, it's written to us. We are those captives at Babylon, as this letter speaks of end time prophecy, as the Neo-Babylonian Empire was taken down by the Medes and the Persians. Okay, it was not destroyed by fire to where, you know, no man would dwell therein. It wasn't destroyed in the fashion of Sodom and Gomorrah. So when you read this chapter, it's actually talking about Babylon the Great, as we always go into. You have Babel, okay, in the book of Genesis 10 and 11. Then you have the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which you can read the book of Daniel. All right, Jeremiah was around, you know, Isaiah was around, Obadiah, Habakkuk. Okay, and other books are our forefathers as they were in that captivity. Okay, that was taken down, you know, by a little friction, and it was a transfer of rulership into the hands of the Persians and the Medes. Then you have Babylon the Great, which is written about in the book of Revelation, the 18th chapter, right? All right, the fall of Babylon. See, and this Babylon the Great is not talking about ancient Babel. It's not talking about the Neo-Babylonian Empire. It's talking about, all right, America, okay, which is known as that great city that ruleth over all of the nations, okay? And we've been going into various videos, going into news and prophecy, doing exactly what the Lord commanded Jeremiah to do here via this letter, okay? So Esau, Edom is in a trick bag, all right? Those who have had their hands on this Bible for centuries and for years, they don't understand this prophecy. A lot of scholars will tell you this chapter has already taken place, but it hasn't, all right? And the hope for Israel and Judah, all right, is being fulfilled All right, the elect of Israel and Judah, because the mass majority of our people have no idea what's going on. They don't care for a kingdom. They still want to be identified by the terms and the pseudoscience that Esau Edom has put on them. You know, black, Cuban, Haitian, all these various different terms. But the hope for the true biblical Israelites, the elect, the remnant in the latter days, okay, which would seek to lean on Yahweh Bashmi Shai and no longer lean on their enemy. All right, that's the book of Isaiah 20 and 10. Okay, where the remnant of the nation of Israel would awaken. All right, and come to the understanding of who they were. All right, this would mark the end of Esau's world, man, and it's happening at a rapid rate. Okay, Jeremiah 50 and 2. This is what Yahweh says. Tell the whole world. Okay, tell the whole world and keep nothing back. Raise a signal flag to tell everyone Babylon will fall. And the signal flag is these videos going out on the highways and the byways, telling you that Babylon will fall. Her images and idols will be shattered. Okay, her gods, Baal and Marduk, will be utterly disgraced. For a nation will attack her from the north. Okay, speaking of Russia, and bring such destruction that no one will live there again. Everyone will be gone. Both people and animals will flee. And this has not happened yet. Okay, ancient Babylon was fixated in the area of Iraq. And though that place has been hit with warfare and all kind of, destruction over the years via Babylonian propaganda, America's propaganda, there's still people living there. Okay, Babylon the Great, when it's destroyed, all right, it will be likened unto Sodom and Gomorrah. As a matter of fact, I believe that's in this chapter. Okay, boom, Jeremiah 50 and 39. Soon Babylon will be inhabited by desert animals, hyenas. It will be a home for owls. Never again will people live there. It will lie desolate forever. I will destroy it as I destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighboring towns, says the Lord. No one will live there. No one will inhabit it. So this can't be talking about the ancient Neo-Babylonian Empire. Let's just ask a question here. How did the Neo-Babylonian Empire fall? The Neo-Babylonian Empire fell in 539 BC when Cyrus the Great of Persia conquered Babylon and then Chaldean ruled. Okay, so it was an army that invaded Mesopotamia, the Persian conquest. All right, and pretty much it was a transfer of rulership, and you can read Daniel the 5th chapter to go into that history. You see that? And Daniel prophesied it. See, but Babylon, okay, Iraq was still inhabited and is still inhabited unto this day. So what exactly, okay, is this talking about when we read Jeremiah the 50th chapter? Okay. It says, Jeremiah 50 and 41, look, a great army is coming from the north, a great nation and many kings are rising against you from far off lands. They are armed with bows and spears. They are cruel and show no mercy. As they arrive forward on horses, which is their military might. Because, again, let's get real quick. Let's get the book of Isaiah, the 9th chapter. Okay. Isaiah 9 and 5. It says, for every battle of the warrior, ancient wars, is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. So ancient wars were fought, with horses, men with shields and swords, right? Let's read it in the NLT. For the boots of the warriors and the uniforms blood-stained by war will be burned. That ain't a good one. Okay. Basically, ancient wars, all right, were fought by warriors with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, shields, horses. But this one shall be with burning and fuel of fire. All right. And this is going to lead unto Yahushai's return to set up a righteous government, which is the throne of David. You see that? So the Lord, all right, Jeremiah 50 and 42, all of these different nations are gathering together and being gathered together. All right. Through Esau's ill dealing, all of these nations are being gathered together. All right. And as we can see here, they are all armed with bows and spears, and they are all cruel and show no mercy. As they ride forward on horses, they sound like a roaring sea. They are coming in battle formation, planning to destroy you, Babylon. That's what's being formulated here through all of these nations coming together. And we'll get into some of that. The king of Babylon has heard reports about the enemy, and he is weak with fright, and he's using his media to push off this persona of tough guy and that they're in control. All right. But pangs of anguish have gripped him like those of a woman in labor. So Esau, Edom is definitely in fear. All right. And the Lord has caused his pride has caused him to be led into a situation where he's not ready, man. Okay. The pride, Obadiah verse 3, the pride of thine heart have deceived thee. All right. Thou that dwelleth in the cleft of the rock and in ancient Petra. All right. Esau's pride, because he was in the caves, his pride was high as hell. Now he's been blessed with the heap of military might via the sword. He has, subordinate nations that, at one point would bow to his every demand, use their, put all of the money for their nation into, military campaigns that benefited him. And he's at the point that ultimately no one will ever bring him down. Okay, the mindset centered around Babylon. Okay, just as ancient Rome is what? Revelation 13 and 4. And they worship the dragon, which is, all right, Rome. All right, and Rome has been revived through Babylon the Great. Okay, which gave power unto the beast. And they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto this beast? Who is able to make war with him? So this is the mindset centered around Babylon and their military and their army. All right. Especially, with the formation of NATO. Okay. The EU. They've been able to dominate on a level that no other nation, all right, has ever witnessed. You see, and their pride and it's went to their head. All right. But we're living in a time where many nations are now armed with military might, and they're forming their own, all right, coalitions and confederacies, not only to operate outside of U.S. dollar dominance, but also for the purpose of joint military actions that will be used against the land of Israel and eventually Babylon the Great. And as you can see, this article here, End Time Headlines, Iran conflict goes global with over 20 nations now literally involved. So you see how this one small nation, all right, the Jewish people, the small hats, the least of the flock, are being used to draw out many nations unto conflict. Okay, we always bring this out, Jeremiah 49 and 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of the Lord, which he have taken against Edom, and his proposes that he have proposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate. Now the very same mindset is mimicked in the next chapter, Jeremiah 50 and 45. All right. Therefore, hear ye the counsel of the Lord that he have taken against Babylon. So Babylon and Edom are the same. And his purposes that he have proposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock. All right. And the least of the flock speaks to, all right, the small hats, the 1948ers, tiny tops. Okay. The rulers of this world. All right. The bankers, the red shield people that we've been telling you about, they are small hats as well. Okay. And when you look at this beast system, okay, out of the seventh, which is British, came America. All right. But also came the small hats. You see that? So they will be known as the least of the flock. Okay. And Babylon, along with the NATO and the EU, has acted on their behalf all of these years. But we're living at a time where many of these nations are now reneging and coming to the conclusion that these people are the problem. So America is going to be left without allies protecting, all right, their pimp. So surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. So the least of the flock, as you can see, are drawn out many nations, right? 10 days into Trump's Iran campaign, the war has gone global. At least 20 countries are now militarily involved, shooting, shielding, or quietly supplying, while widening energy stock. All right. While a widening energy shock punishes nations far from the front lines. So the actions and the things that are happening via this, skirmish led by the small hats in America, Iran, is leading to, disruptions in supply chains, is leading in oil prices rising, is leading to economic and infrastructure failures. See? So now other nations are saying, we got to get involved. We need to do this. We need to do that. This isn't World War III, but it may be the closest we've come in decades, drawing in more countries, more great powers, and more overlapping conflicts, all right, than any crisis since the Cold War. Okay, Iran has struck at least 10 countries since the war began, hitting U.S. and Israeli bases, Persian Gulf capitals, oil infrastructure, and civilian areas in an attempt to impose maximum pain on Washington and its allies. Iran has effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow choke point, which 20% of the world oil flows, sending prices for oil, gas, plastics, and fertilizer soaring across the globe. Okay, this little strip here, right? And Israel fighting on two fronts, pounding Iran while battling Hezbollah on the ground in Lebanon, where more than 5,000 people have been displaced in a week. And boy, they've been destroying Lebanon, which that's a part of the Holy Land. That's a part of the Promised Land. Okay? And when you get the book of Habakkuk, let's get Habakkuk, the second chapter, because he's doing nothing but wickedness. Let's see here. For the violence, this is Habakkuk chapter 2 and 17, right? This man is doing violence all over the world. Okay? You will, NET, you will pay for your full violent acts against Lebanon. Terrifying judgment will come upon you because of the way you destroyed the wild animals, you shed human blood, and committed violent acts against the land. Okay? For the violence you've done to Lebanon will overwhelm you. Okay, so he's just in destruction mode, trying to fulfill his version of a birthright with this whole greater Israel project. You see? So all over the biblical prophecy is being fulfilled day in and day out, week in and week out. Okay? And as you can see here, 500,000 people being displaced, just nothing but war. And this is all the Lord's determination. The war has spread far beyond the Middle East, which is Western Asia, pulling European militaries into conflict and forcing NATO to shoot down Iranian missiles over Allied territories for the first time. All right. And there's, this talking point of, Turkey being, targeted by Iran, but Iran, okay, is saying that they didn't do it. Okay. Iran is not taking responsibility for it. There was an article here. There you go. which we know prophetically Turkey will eventually side with, Russia and their Muslim brothers, although Turkey and Iran don't get along. Okay, eventually they're all going to come to the conclusion this is the doing of the small hat in Babylon, which they're trying to draw Turkey into helping them. Okay, so Iran is not taking responsibility for the missile fire on Turkey. All right, and as you see, Erdogan, all right, is saying we're not going to be dragged into your mess. Okay, Turkey will not get dragged into the Mideast war after Iranian missile incidents. Okay, and this is so basically a missile was shot over there and it got intercepted, a few of them. All right, and Iran is saying we didn't do it. Turkey is saying we're not going to be dragged into it, which Turkey is a part of NATO. So very interesting things are happening, right? Okay, that are going to lead to alliances of the NATO and the EU being broken. All right. And let's see here. Yep, France has dispatched this nuclear aircraft carrier in the Eastern Mediterranean, joining British warships after Iranian made a drone strike in the UK. Greece and Turkey, bitter rivals within NATO, have also rushed forces to Cyprus, where their fighter jets are now face each other across a partition line that has divided the island for 50 years. Even Australia said Monday it's sending major missiles and radar planes to help the UAE and other Gulf countries. See that? Defend themselves from Iran. So within this war, alliances are being broken. All right. And as the scriptures say, let's get Revelation 20:7. And when 1,000 years are expired, okay, the Byzantine Empire leading into the Renaissance, the deadly wound being healed, Satan, the children of Satan, Esau, Edom, shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, which is Russia, that are going to be at the forefront of this, this mindset against the West, against the small hat, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. So this is where we are, okay, where all of these nations are being gathered together, all right, for the purpose of Armageddon, okay, Yahweh Shaphat, okay. Let's get Jeremiah or Joel 1 or Joel 2 or Joel 3. Joel 3:1. For behold, in those days and at that time, when I shall again bring the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, take us out of our captivity, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, or Yahweh Shaphat. Let's look up this word. Okay. The valley of Yahweh Shaphat. All right. Yahweh Shaphat. Yahweh has judged. Yahweh's judgment. Okay. Symbolic name for the valley near Jerusalem is speaking of Western Asia. Okay. It's speaking of Western Asia. Okay. What they call the Middle East. All right. Where troops have been sent to Saudi Arabia and these various different nations. All right. You see the UAE. All right. And these places are being obliterated. All right. By their alliances with America and having particular, allowing America to set up particular bases over here. All right. Now these places are being, struck. Dubai, UAE. All right. And various different, Gulf countries and states that have made deals with Babylon. Now they're under fire. As a matter of fact, we showed you that video the other day. Let's look at it again. Right. Let's play a little bit of this.
Next, I want to show you this. This is Dubai. And Dubai is considered one of the wealthiest, safest cities in the world. There are thousands, tens of thousands of Westerners who move to Dubai because it's clean, you don't pay any taxes, you make a lot of money, and there are great restaurants. And this is really the economic model of Dubai. It's one of the GCC countries, okay, the Gulf coastal countries. And for the longest time, Dubai had a really good deal because they were under the protection of the American military. So they didn't have to pay for defense. And then they were in the Middle East, which is the oil producing center of the world. And so they focus on aviation, they focus on logistics, they focus on finance, on tourism. They're extremely wealthy, right? I'm not sure if you've taken Emirates, one of the best airlines in the world. So their airport, Dubai Airport, is the busiest in the world. And Dubai, for the longest time, was flourishing under American protection. And Dubai said to the world, listen, we're like Switzerland. We're neutral. We don't want any involvement in any wars. We're here just to take care of our citizens, to make sure everyone has a good time, to make money. And then right after the war started, the Iranians attacked the GCC, okay? Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, they attacked these places. And these places were like, what's going on? We're neutral, man. We're not involved in this war. And the airport was shut down in Dubai. At one point, the rich people in Dubai were willing to pay about $250,000 US just to get on a plane and get out of there. Okay? So the reality is this. For the longest time, Dubai had a reputation for being safe, and that's why people moved their money there. Guess what, guys? After what the Iranians did, it's dead. Dubai as a city, in the long term, it is dead. Because you're a wealthy Westerner, you're not going to move to a place where it can be attacked any time by the Iranians. You might move to Singapore, you might move to Hong Kong, Japan, South America, but you're not moving to Dubai, okay? So the big question for us is, why do the Iranians do this? If it was the Israelis and Americans who attacked you, why go after the GCC, right? And not only that, but they're escalating the attacks against the GCC. This is something that we will look at very closely today. Well, the short answer is because these places, even though they pretend to be neutral, they house the American military.
They house the American military. And we've already played that video, but I just wanted to get into that. So we see the Valley of Yehoshaphat, okay, hot for prophecy's sake, where the Lord is gathering all of these different militaries for the purpose of making his final decision. And this is going to usher in the return of Yahushua. You see that? So this the what they call the Middle East, which is really West Asia. Because when you go into the scriptures, you don't see nothing about Middle East. You only see Asia. You go to a Bible search, right, and just type in, let's just type in Middle East. All right? You won't see that. You don't see that term. That was made up by the Esau. But when you type in Asia, I mean, it's in the scriptures. Okay, let's look up the term Asia in the scriptures. Certain Jews from Asia, right? Orient, all right? East, okay? Embracing Lydia, Pygra, Caria, corresponding closely to Turkey today. Okay, and you could just look up a map of Asia. Okay, what they call the Middle East falls in Western Asia. See that? So Esau, Edom, and his, the renaming and all his lies. But either way it goes, there's conflict being involved in this region for the purpose of prophecy being fulfilled. Okay, as we are moving towards this man's perdition, right? As you see here, 40 nations meet in the Hague to discuss measures against Israel's West Bank annexation. Okay, the Hague Group Conference pledges to ensure accountability for international crimes, and prevent arms and material supports from reaching Israel. So his ill dealings, right? The book of Obadiah, verse 7, are leading to what? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and have prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have taken on U.S. debt, have laid a wound under thee, and there's no understanding because of America's support for Israel. So let's get into that happening with these 20 countries, which Spain and Ireland which are, U.S. allies, all right, are talking about joining this. So the least of the flock, Israel, is going to lead, America's defense for Israel is going to lead, all right, to a very, very, very high consequence. And this is where we're headed.
Inclusive Spain and Ireland to join more than 20 states to declare concrete measures against Israel. Turkey, Portugal, China, Qatar are among countries that will be attending the Hague's Group's Emergency Summit in Colombia next week. This is real, right? More than 20 countries are convening in Bogota next week to declare concrete measures against Israel's violations of international law. Diplomats told Middle East Eye. That's really happening. And if you'd like to hear my jokes about it, I'll be doing them this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Toronto, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, and Concord, New Hampshire. Go to jimmydoe.com for a link for tickets. The emergency summit is due to be held on 15th and 16th of July. So that's starting tomorrow, right? Co-hosted by the governments of Colombia and South Africa and co-chairs of the Hague Group to coordinate diplomatic and legal action to counter what they describe as a climate of impunity enabled by Israel and its powerful allies. So 20 countries have said we've had enough. And here it is, Progressive International. The Hague Group of 9 nations announced their commitment to bring Netanyahu to justice, stop arms to Israel, and no harbor for genocide. Let's listen.
See that?
We then declare our intention to uphold the UN resolution A/ES10/24 in the case of state parties to the International Criminal Court to support and comply with our obligations under their own statute with regards to the warrants issued on 21st of November 2024 and to implement the provisional measures of the International Court of Justice issued on 26th of January, also on the 28th of March, and also on the 24th of May 2024. We declare our intention to prevent provision or transfer of arms, munitions, and related equipment to Israel in all cases where there is a clear risk that such arms and related items might be used to commit or facilitate violations of humanitarian law, international human rights law, or the prohibition on genocide, in compliance with our international obligations and consistent with the International Court of Justice Advisory Opinion of 19 July 2024 and the UN General Assembly Resolution A/RES/ES10/24. We declare our intention to prevent the docking of vessels at any port, if applicable, within our territorial jurisdiction.
So basically, they're coming together, all right, to say, look, enough is enough. These small hats got to be stopped. All right, if you got, any alliances with them that leads to their aid, stop it. We got to put a halt to the small hat.
Cases where there's a clear risk of the vessel being used to carry military fuel and weaponry to Israel.
So they're talking about actually stopping the shipment of arms or aid to Israel. Those 20 countries are actually talking about stopping the docking at a port if they think it's going to go to aid the arms shipments to Israel. That's a big deal.
Which might be used to commit or facilitate violations of humanitarian law, of international human rights law, and of the prohibition of genocide in Palestine, in keeping with the state's peremptory legal obligation to cooperate towards preventing genocide and other violations.
So what he's saying is like, hey, we're actually the ones upholding international law, not the United States, not Israel. We're the ones who are actually going to do this now. Because nobody pays attention to the ICJ or the ICC. Nobody pays attention to the UN resolution. Nobody does anything. Those are just words. Well, we're actually going to do something. We're actually going to block ports. We're actually going to...
Yeah, the UN is supposed to stand for peace. All right. Every time the U.S. or Israel does something, off, all right, they veto it. They veto it, man. Nothing gets done. And they my mind's early. My mind's, they commit all kind of war crimes that go against, what is allowed. Okay. And the UN, because it's under the control of the small hats in the UN, they just allow it. So now these nations are saying, look, enough is enough. We have to create our own body to come to some sort of agreement that will stop these people because they're war hungry. Remember, Amalek is a monster. He doesn't care about children. He doesn't care about elderly. He don't care about nobody. Okay?
Israel is the most violent country per capita in the whole world because it doesn't declare any borders. Ask Netanyahu. There'll never be a Palestinian land, believe me, period. The borders will expand when we want, where we want. Of course, between the Nile and the Euphrates to fulfill greater Israel's hegemonic aspirations. And anyone that objects, we're going to take out. So Israel has either overtly or covertly through Mossad engaged in wars that stretch from Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and now Iran. And Netanyahu also wrote a few days ago that the war on Iran fulfills my 40-year dream. This is very important for people to understand because the claim was, well, Iran didn't negotiate right last week, or it's about this, or it's about that. No, this is a 40-year dream of Netanyahu. It is. Now Israel has invaded Lebanon. It's displacing these hours hundreds of thousands of people. It's telling people in Beirut, you must leave in the next 3 hours. This is a crazy country. I'm sorry. They think that it's as if they have a deed inscribed somewhere in heaven that they own all this land, that we stop at nothing to ensure global hegemony and Israeli regional hegemony, that you develop and you say, therefore I go to war with my neighbors.
It's basically Esau trying to get his birthright back. So they're going to send more ships, and they're eventually going to draft your sons and daughters to take their asses over there to be destroyed.
Officials confirming to CBS News the Pentagon is expected to send more ships and Marines to the Middle East. This news does come as at least 13 American service members have now been confirmed dead as part of Operation Epic Fury. Erica Brown has the latest developments now from the White House.
The Pentagon Friday confirmed the deaths of all 6 crew members aboard a U.S.
If you believe it's only 6 or 13 members of the U.S. service that are gone, you crazy.
military refueling tanker that was supporting operations in Iran. Officials say a second aircraft was also involved but landed safely, and they believe the incident may have involved a mid-air collision.
You Americans have been duped.
Escalating in the growing war with Iran as new violence and military moves unfold across the region. The U.S. military says 6 American service members were killed when a refueling aircraft crashed in Iraq, while at the same time,
it's always
is
6.
sending thousands of Marines to the Middle East. Meanwhile, strikes continue in both Tehran and Israel as the death toll from the war climbs into the thousands. Eyewitness News reporter Lauren Glassberg is in the newsroom with the very latest. Lauren?
Sade, gas prices are up. Travel in and out of the Middle East has been all but halted. And now we have learned that Formula One races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia have been canceled. Those races were set to happen in April. This war now in day 14, and the impacts continue to widen.
Today will be, yet again, the highest volume of strikes that America has put over the skies of Iran.
The bellicose talk continues from the defense secretary today. More strikes on Iran by both the U.S. and Israel. The IDF targeting the regime's various command centers. A blast heard in the background while this interview took place in Tehran. Meanwhile, Iran is broadcasting satellite images to show damage at bases through the Middle East that host American troops, though the damage is hard to perceive. A missile attack by Hezbollah, an Iranian proxy, caused damages and injuries in northern Israel. And Iran's been able to effectively shut down the transport of oil through the Strait of Hormuz.
Which is leading, and that's going to affect many countries. So something's going to have to be done. Now, I wanted to get this. This is the book of Second Esdras 15 and 46. It says, "And thou, Asia, that are a partaker of the hope of Babylon." So many of these countries in Western Asia, have made alliances with Babylon. And not only have they made alliances that led to, money flowing and oil flowing, but the people have been tainted. See that? It says, "and are the glory of her person." So these countries are suffering. This whole region is suffering as well because of the wine of Babylon that they've allowed over in their countries. It says, "Woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, and that they might please, all right, and glory in thy lovers. For money's sake, all right, these Arab nations allow Babylon to come over there and set up shop. As a matter of fact, here's a video that speaks to that. Let's see if I can bring that out. Here you go.
So throughout the 30s and 40s, American oil executives, workers, and their families started flocking to the Middle East, establishing the first significant American presence in the region. They set up little cities around the oil operation that were little slices of America, full of the deepest sinful behavior, like allowing women to drive and the consumption of alcohol.
Here is another American colony, complete with air-conditioned houses, 2 hospitals, and an outdoor movie theater.
This is the sort of stuff that is very off limits in Saudi Arabia. It's literally illegal at this point. So you have a lot of Saudis who are not happy about their government letting the Americans in to behave however they want. But the oil kept flowing. And soon the US government goes to the royal family and says, listen, the oil is flowing better than ever. This is awesome. How about we build a little military base attached to our little oil city so that we can, protect you and protect us and protect the oil and stuff.
And see, this is now worked against, all right, these Arab nations. Okay? Worked against these Arab nations because now these very military bases that they've set up over here are being struck, which is leading to places, all right, that we've been going over. We've showed you that are tourist countries, and that was sitting on a high horse, because it's deeper than just allowing the women to drive and smoke cigarettes and wear bathing suits. They've allowed the wine of Babylon, okay, to flourish, and it's caused a lot of tension between these Arab nations. Okay. So it says changes like women driving, Western clothing, smoking, entertainment, and tourism. And it's deeper than that in parts of the middle. Because when you think about Epstein, you got to know this stuff is happening, all right, all over the world. And a lot of these Eastern Arab, countries are involved in the same shit. Okay. Esau has influenced them, although, we know these are heathen. They have morals. They have certain standards that they live by. But through making deals with Babylon the Great, they've thrown it off. So the whole world is drunken. As a matter of fact, let's get Jeremiah 51 real quick. But let's get it in the NLT. Jeremiah 51:7. Right. Babylon has been a gold cup in the Lord's hands that have made the whole earth drunk. Okay. The nations drank Babylon's wine, and it drove them all mad. Okay. These people have been driven crazy. All right. It says changes like women driving, Western clothing, smoking, entertainment, and tourism and parts of the Middle East have created real cultural debates and friction inside some Arab countries. The effects vary by country, but there are a few common patterns. Rapid social change in some Gulf states, all right, which, certain places held off, but in 2018, they started, Saudi Arabia gave in when women were allowed to drive, concerts, cinema, and tourism. So Western culture has spread. Western style results in beaches, okay? It says these changes are often linked to economic plans like Vision 2030 in Saudi Arabia, which aims to diversify the economy beyond oil. See that? International cultural debate. These changes have produced two main viewpoints within the society. People who support modernization argue that women working and driving helps the economy. As you can see, women are very important to a culture. Okay? It says global tourism and entertainment bring money. Younger generations want more freedom and opportunity. You see that? liberty, freedom, democracy. Many young people in major cities support these reforms. Other people oppose it and say it weakens traditional Islamic values, imitate Western culture too much, erode long-standing social norms and modesty and gender roles. So Esau Edom goes over there and brings his culture, all right? And because these Eastern nations in Western Asia are able to live on a high horse and have all kind of, aid and money flowing, they've done it, okay? Another big factor is the internet and social media, which expose younger generations to global culture regardless of government policy. Many young Arabs watch Western films and music, global fashion trends, international influence. This exposure has accelerated cultural change in societies that once tried to limit it. Okay? Certain governments that oppose themselves against Western influence, such as Iran, often criticize these cultural changes in the Gulf. All right, they argue that adopting Western social norms can weaken Islamic identity. Okay. Also axed on Gronk. You see, to further expound on what he was talking about in that video we just saw. Let's see here. Let's see how this snowballed into a broader cultural change in parts of the Middle East. This wasn't just one-off anomaly. Once those American oil enclaves existed, they became permanent cultural bubbles that Saudis and later other Gulf states could eventually could see every day. Over decades, the pattern accelerated. Okay? So, I mean, we can keep going. Women driving, smoking in public, swimsuits, drinking alcohol. Okay, and basically, as we're reading here, let's read it again. Okay, verse 46, 2nd Esdras 15 and 46. And thou, Asia, thou art a partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her person. Woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredoms, that they might please and glory in thy lovers. See? Which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. So you've given yourself over to the idols of Babylon and the lifestyle of Babylon, which all of y'all are heathen, but Esau is the chief heathen. He has no, godly, desire. He has no, standard. You can just do what the hell you want to do. This is the serpent. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore said the Heavenly Father, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. See? And the power and the glory of thy power shall be dried up. The heat shall arise that is sent over to thee. See, and this is what's happening to these, here in Western Asia. Okay, we're seeing the beginning of that, which is going to lead to a lot of these Arab nations, all right, do away with their alliances with Babylon and come together, which is also spoken about in the book of 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter, where the dragons of Arabia, right, are going to join together. Verse 29, the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, that they which hear them may hear, fear, and tremble. And this is why you're hearing the talking point of a Arab NATO. All right. Proposal. Okay. Which not all of them are with it, but eventually. All right, as you see, Egypt is actively pushing to revive a NATO-style joint Arab security force. Okay, this alliance aims to create a collective defense mechanism where an attack on one is an attack on all, to protect Arab nations from regional threats without relying on external powers. You see, so the Arabs are in talks of joining together. All right, but as you can see here, all right, 2nd Esdras 16 and 1, woe unto thee, Babylon, and Asia. Woe unto thee, Egypt and Syria. Okay? Gird thyself up with sackcloth and hair. Bewail your children and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. A sword is sent upon you, and who may turn it back? And we've seen over the years these regions, Iraq, all right, Asia, Egypt, Syria, all right, are at the forefront of the small hat and what he wants to control. And this is all a judgment against them. Okay? Let's see here. Gird up yourselves with sackcloth. So basically a sword is sent upon you. Fire, plagues are sent unto you. All right. And what is he that may drive them away? So as we can see, the valley of Yahweh Shaphat is on fire because all of these prophecies have to be fulfilled, because this is how the Heavenly Father is going to get us up out of here. Okay. So with all of this hell going on at the head, with Israel and Babylon at the head of it, other nations are now allying together saying, look, we need to figure out a way to put a stop to this. This is going to lead eventually to the beast hating, the whore, and all of the various prophecies that we talk about. Okay.
You're going to stop ships from docking that are going to take any kind of aid to Israel that they can use to do their genocide. That's what he's saying, that they're actually going to do now. Countries are actually joining together now because they see that the United Nations isn't going to do anything. The United States isn't going to do anything. The European Union isn't going to do anything. So now these 20 countries are coming together to do something.
Empty norms are all legal measures at their disposal.
The Hague Group is a block of currently 8 states launched on 31st of January in Dutch city that has stated a goal of holding Israel accountable under international law. The Hague Group's formation in January marked a turning point in the global response to exceptionalism and the broader erosion of international law. The same spirit will animate this Bogota conference, where the assembled states will send a clear message: no nation is above the law and no crimes will go unanswered. Together, we will work to introduce concrete legal, diplomatic, and economic measures that can urgently halt Israel's destruction of the Palestinians. So legal, diplomatic, and economic measures. So and I like they use the word concrete. Israel's war on Gaza, increasingly condemned by experts and governments as a genocide, has killed more than 57,000 Palestinians. I don't even know how they come up with that number, because I bet it's more closer to 400,000. Because most of those people,
I've always thought that.
Most of those people are underneath that rubble, and nobody's going. So it's way more than 57,000 people. I can guarantee you that.
Just like Lahain is more than 150 people.
So like the book of Joel says, the Lord is pleading with these heathen. Okay. I forget where I think that's in Joel. Yep. Joel 3:2. I will gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Yahweh Shaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. So even the Arab nations had their hands in that. The so-called Africans had their hand in that. So this is all happening, and this is just the beginning of the payback of the heathen and the restoration of the true biblical Israelites. That's what's happening.
That the onslaught has left the Palestinian enclave barely habitable and left 2 million people starving. The Palestinian genocide threatens our entire multilateral system. Colombia cannot be indifferent in the face of apartheid and ethnic cleansing. In Bogota, the assembled states will not only reaffirm our commitment to resist the genocide, but devise a series of specific measures to move from words to collective action. So no more talking. No more issuing condemnations of Israel's genocide and their ethnic cleansing. No more resolutions. We're actually going to do something. We're actually going to block their ships. We're actually going to stop their ships from docking at ports. We're going to block supplies going to Israel. That's what actually is going to happen now. That's actually happening now.
Well, did you know Argentina, I don't see up there, because Malay is providing safe haven to IDF war criminals
that's right.
film themselves on TikTok doing crimes. Yeah. They're fleeing to Argentina.
The founding members of the group included Bolivia, Colombia, Cuba, Honduras, Malaysia, Namibia, and Senegal and South Africa. Here's all the delegations. Republic of Colombia, South Africa, Algeria, Bolivia, Botswana, Brazil, the Federative Republic of Brazil, Chile, China, Cuba, Djibouti, Honduras, Indonesia, Iraq, Ireland, Lebanon, the state of Libya, Malaysia, Mexican states, Republic of Namibia, Nicaragua, Norway, Oman.
Yep. So, hey, we're in interesting times, and you go to the UN meeting, and let's go here. They're still with the rhetoric. So nations are like, we got to do something outside of the UN because the UN ain't gonna, bring any justice, which they, Let's go here.
This is democracy.
Let's go here. So we get a little bit of this one. So the so-called Middle East, all right, which in the book of Habakkuk, the third chapter, right? Let's see here. Habakkuk 3:7. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction, and the curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. Okay, this is the eastern, right? This is the Middle East. When you look up this word Cushan, right? Kawashan, all right, a place in Arabia or Mesopotamia, all right, which ultimately we're witnessing the beginning of this. Okay, and as Yahushua returns, there's going to be full-blown war in here, in this area. Okay? The valley of Yahweh Shaphat. Okay, so as he said, he's seen these places in affliction in this vision. Okay? I saw in my vision the tents of Cushan under distress, and the curtains of the land of Midian were trembling. And the Midianites are Arabs. Okay, the sons of Ishmael. See that? Let's look up Midian. Salakia, hold up. Madayan. All right, Arabians. Madayan, okay, son of Abraham by Keturah, the progenitor of the tribes of Midianites or Arabians. Okay, territory of the tribe descended from Midian, located principally in the desert of north of Arabian Peninsula. All right, let's look up Arabian Peninsula, see where that's at. Persian Gulf. What they call the Middle East. Okay? So prophecy is on point. And again, you can't go to any other book to get this in-depth understanding of why all of these various different things are happening. More than that, you have to be anointed through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai to teach these things. So again, Psalms 7:16, his mischief shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come up down on his own pate. So all of his wickedness is going to eventually turn against him, man. Let's go here.
Earlier this week, the UN Security Council adopted a resolution condemning Iran for its, quote, egregious attacks against its Gulf neighbors, calling out specifically attacks on residential areas and civilians, as well as its closure of the Strait of Hormuz, threatening global energy supplies. Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan are specifically mentioned in the resolution, which had 140 co-sponsors. Of the 15 Security Council members, 13 voted in favor with none against. China and Russia abstained. Bahrain's UN ambassador.
China and Russia abstain. See? And again, those are going to be major players in this alliance against the small hat in the West.
Ambassador Jamal Faris al-Rawai said the vote reflected the collective conscience of the world.
This overwhelming support from the international community reflects a collective awareness of the danger posed by the unjust Iranian attack against our countries, the Kingdom of Bahrain, the GCC, and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, over the past 12 days. The adoption by the Council of this resolution today confirms that the international community is united in addressing and confronting these hostile acts. The stability and safety of the region is part and parcel of the security and peace architecture.
Russia's representative to the UN called the past resolution biased for not acknowledging Israel and the United States as instigators of the war. Russia introduced a second resolution that called for an immediate halt to all hostilities in the Middle East without naming any parties involved. That resolution failed to pass. This is the U.S. ambassador to...
So certain of these Arab nations are still, you know, under the wine influence of Babylon. Like, wait a minute, Iran is a, you know, and it's Israel. Iran is attacking us, but why are they attacking you? Because you are a partaker of the hope and glory of Babylon, and you have allowed them to set bases up, right, in your country. All right. And everything's coming to a head because, again, all of these different heathen nations had a hand in our downfall and lived off the high horse. All right. Off of our downfall. And that's mimicked in the book of Joel as well. OK, so many scriptures. It talks about the coast of Palestine. OK, where these Arabs are getting obliterated. OK.
To the United Nations, Mike Waltz.
Once again, Russia is acting here at the Security Council to protect its partner, Iran. We reject Russia's attempt to conflate lawful U.S. actions taken in line with Article 51 of the UN Charter, to conflate those actions with Iran's pattern of bloodshed and brutality to its own people and around the world, and with its recent deliberate and at scale targeting of civilians and civilian infrastructure across the Gulf and the Middle East. The United States will continue to work here at this council and beyond to hold the Iranian regime to account and to bring to light its destabilizing and unlawful actions. Russia's attempts to prevent this council from acting in line with its core principles will not deter us.
For more, we're joined by the economist Jeffrey Sachs. He's the director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University and president of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. He's also served as advisor in assault on the United Nations, unquote. In an open letter to the UN Security Council in February, Professor Sachs said it was the U.S. and not Iran that had walked away from negotiations and that U.S. threats against Iran violated international law. He said, quote, the issue facing the UN Security Council in these perilous days is whether any member state, by force or threat of force, may place itself above the United Nations Charter that governs us all. At stake is the integrity of the UN-based international system.
And the U.S. and Israel are always going against, I believe it's Article 6 or Article 5 of the UN treaty, and everything gets vetoed. Okay? So UN doesn't really stand for peace as it, stands, as they act. Right? They support it.
System, unquote. Professor Sachs today joins us from Rome, Italy. Thanks so much for being with us, Professor Sachs. Why don't you elaborate on this letter and your statements about the UN international order and what is happening today with the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran and Iran's retaliatory attacks?
Thank you very much, Amy. And what a chilling show to hear Gideon Levy, to hear your report from Beirut. We have a war of blatant aggression that is going to put the entire world into a disaster. This is a war of aggression and a war of choice by Israel and the United States. It is in the most blatant, frank violation of the UN Charter and the core of the UN Charter, its purpose, which says that nations shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, period. That is Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the UN Charter. Waltz, the U.S. ambassador, says, oh, we're acting under Article 51. That is the article on self-defense. The United States is not acting in self-defense.
Hypocrisy.
Israel is not acting in self-defense. These two countries are committing flagrant aggression, and they've done it twice now in the context of negotiations, which makes it all the more pernicious. Twice the United States claimed it was negotiating with Iran, and twice it killed Iranian leaders in the midst of the so-called negotiations. This is the most blatant and brazen assault on the UN Charter and international law since it was founded in 1945. Even in the Iraq War and other U.S. war and Israeli wars of choice. They faked it, at least. Here, they don't even fake it. They just are blatant aggressors with no justification at all. Our UN ambassador is Green Beret. They have militarized everything about our society, Amy and Juan. We are in a security state, not a constitutional order. No one asks the American people about whether to go to war or not. And our Congress doesn't want to have anything to do with this. So when they're asked, they say, don't ask us. This is, we give it to Mr. Trump and to Mr. Netanyahu. So I think this is the most brazen fascism that we have seen since the fascist era. And it is absolutely extraordinary. And it's going to put us, I think, probably into World War III. And if it doesn't do that, it's going to put us into an economic calamity worldwide.
Which is what the elites want.
I wanted to ask you this narrative now that the Trump administration has been pushing in all of their pronouncements, that this is actually attempting to end the war that Iran launched against the United States decades ago, and they make it seem like everything that's happened that has been Iran aggressing against the United States, forgetting obviously that the role of our country in goading and supplying Iraq in its war against Iran in the 1980s and the various other attacks by Israel and the United States against Iran in the past.
Look, every word that Donald Trump says is vile and ignorant. So we can almost say for sure that every word he posts every day is a vile lie. But when it comes to the United States and Iran, yes, this does go back a long way. In 1953, when Iran had a fully functioning democracy, the CIA and MI6 overthrew the government of Mossadegh, Prime Minister Mossadegh. We installed a police state. We installed a police state that lasted from 1953 to 1979. When the Iranian people took back their country, we immediately armed Iraq, as you said, Juan, to go to war with Iran and to kill hundreds of thousands of people.
Man.
When that war ended in 1988, the United States continued through the CIA and other means to do everything possible to destabilize the Iranian government, to crush the economy, to impose U.S. measures, sanctions, and so on, to destroy the well-being of the population. When the Iranians said, we want to negotiate with you, the United States rejected at almost every stage, with one exception, which is that in the Obama presidency, the United States, together with Britain, France, China, Russia, Germany, the permanent 5 members of the UN Security Council plus Germany, the P5+1 as it was called, negotiated an agreement with Iran that put Iran under strict UN supervision, the International Atomic Energy Agency, to ensure that what Iran said was actually carried out, which is that Iran did not want a nuclear weapon, and the IAEA would inspect. And for 3 years, the IAEA inspected hundreds and hundreds of times.
So as you can see, there's a long history of hypocrisy and wickedness. All right. And again, we ain't on either side, but this is going to lead, all right, as it says here, U.S.-Israeli war of choice, assault on UN character could lead to World War III. And it is eventually, or even if it doesn't happen this year, prophetically, we know the joy of the hypocrite is up. Okay? This is the book of Isaiah 13:6. Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand, and it shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. And they shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman in travaileth. The Lord is breaking up all of your Dubai vacations, flying all over the world, enjoying. All of that is getting ready to be over with. Okay? All of these different scenarios with all these shooters and, you know, synagogue shootings, all of that is going to be used to shut down these cities. Right? Turmoil and pain is coming. No, you don't want to hear it. But again, we have been given the order to conceal not the words of these prophecies. They shall be amazed at one another. Their faces shall be as flames. They're going to be like, what the hell is going on? Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. All right, let's jump down to 11. And I will punish the world for their evil and their wicked, and the wicked for their iniquity, and I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. I will make a man, the men of the Lord, more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out her place, and the wrath of Yahweh, all right, and in the day of his fierce anger, and it shall be as the chase roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall turn, then shall every man turn to his own people, and turn to his own land. And that's happening as well, which I was going to get it in another news and prophecy, but I'll get it real quick here, where you got certain South Africans leaving America, okay, going back to genocide. You know, those white South Africans who were allowed to come over here in the midst of them complaining about illegal immigrants. Even some that have been here for decades, they're now returning to South Africa for a better life. Okay? Even some who were brought over here in 2025 because they want a better quality of life. You know? Through. I think I had a video on it.
Naomi Sapphire was born in South Africa and lived for 2 decades in the United States. She came back home for a holiday and realized how much she missed this place.
You cannot dictate what makes your heart happy. So you leave and then you come back because ultimately this is home.
Last year, Sapphire left North Carolina for a seaside town in South Africa's Western Cape.
And they were brought over here, fleeing, genocide, right? But now they're on their way back. I believe that's in Jeremiah 51 as well. Let's see here. Boom. Jeremiah 51:9. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her. Let everyone go into his own country, for her judgment reaches unto heaven. See? White South Africans, refugees returning to South Africa due to financial concerns, difficulty adapting to American culture, and feeling cultural isolated despite integrating into workspaces and schools. Okay, and you got Edomites on here mad as hell, saying it's a lie, it's propaganda. No, a lot of them are returning home. Okay?
Now, she says her 3 children spend more time outdoors, health insurance is affordable, and she prefers the schools. She's among thousands of white South Africans coming back from abroad, despite U.S. President Donald Trump's statements that South Africa's white minority is being persecuted by the country's black majority government.
Terrible things are happening in South Africa.
The Trump administration is ramping up its new refugee program for white South Africans, focusing on Afrikaners, the descendants of Dutch settlers.
So they're returning to genocide, right?
Such as Sapphire and her family. About 3,500 South Africans have entered the United States as refugees since the program started in May 2025. Pretoria says there is no evidence of discrimination or persecution against whites. Many white South Africans and Afrikaners have welcomed Trump's support, but insisted they nevertheless want to remain in their country. And others who left decades ago are now returning. Anton Van Heerden is an employment agent who has been trying to help returnees keep their jobs abroad by shifting.
Yeah, they was going to bring these Edomites over here because they want to make America white again. There's too many, immigrants and brown people over here ruining. So, like he said, what did we learn? This is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You Edomites are a bunch of liars. You're through. Nothing's working. All these narratives you push, it was all lies. People, South Africans are being persecuted. Well, what happened? Why are they even over there? Why are Edomites in South Africa? Do we need to go into that history of apartheid?
To remote work. He said inquiries from white South Africans seeking to return had jumped 70% in the past 6 months.
We have also asked these people why they're coming back, and we got a lot of different reasons. The obvious ones would be whether family, friends, the vibe in South Africa, but also things like cost of living and living standards are considered to be very high in South Africa.
For Naomi and her husband, Danny, they're happy with their choice.
Some of the metrics that we use to decide like whether or not this is our permanent place is education, cost of living, how much we're enjoying the place. And
through, man, through. So all kind of prophecy is being fulfilled. Yeah, they tired of it, man. Thousands of white South Africans, all right, repatriate. Let's see what this, I think I know that word. I love to know what words mean. Send someone back to their own country, return to one's country. As U.S. safety fear grows. They came over here with that propaganda, and it's hell. It became hell. Okay? Now they want to return home. This fulfills prophecy, man. Okay? Isaiah 13:15, everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Their children shall be dashed into pieces before their eyes, and their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravaged. This is Babylon's getting ready to be hell, man. All right, so I just wanted to get into a few prophecies, man. Hopefully I'll edify it. I know it's a lot of information crammed into, abridged and crammed into, an hour and 15, 20, 30 minutes. But, hey, we're just excited to see the Lord's will be done. And Lord willing, you left this lesson with more knowledge of what's going on around you and more fear of Yahweh Bashmi Shai and more faith.